Washington picked up an exciting prospect and three-star receiver Deji Ajose.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into a special bonus edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor with Athlon Sports' Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this hopefully your first watch or first listen today, as we're coming at you with a special Saturday bonus edition because, as we said in the opener, we got to discuss the commitment of three-star receiver Deji Ajose from Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland, California. Lars, this is a really exciting prospect, and I have a lot of fun watching this film.
And to be clear, this is a prospect that Washington had their eye on for a couple of months, did offer, I believe, in early June, last month or so, let's just say. But this wasn't a reactionary offer because some of the other guys that we'll talk about later on haven't made any decisions yet. This was somebody that Scotty Graham and Kevin Cummings both kind of had a relationship with at Bishop O'Dowd High School. Scotty Graham, more or less the area recruiter in the Bay Area, and Kevin Cummings obviously will be Jose's position coach. But this was really a guy that when you look at his production and kind of just his skill set, it was a perfect match for what Kevin Cummings wants to do on the field. A really good receiver, comes from a great high school that used to be a not prominent stomping ground for Washington. You had Camilo Eifler, John Holland at one time, UW target that went to Oregon. Both of those players actually came down his freshman year to talk to him. So Camilo got to talk to him a little bit about Washington. But really a lot of this was shored up on the visit. He took a visit to Cal, took a couple of other visits, but Washington really was that school for him where, hey, when he got the offer, I talked to him I believe that day or the next day. And he said, yeah, I'm really trying to get up there for that visit. Makes a midweek official visit on Wednesday before the big visit weekend. To be clear, people were saying that he was on campus during the weekend. I'm like, no, he was in Berkeley on June 21st and 22nd. But what was at Washington? And I think that spoke to his interest, where as long as he came up, and similar to a number of guys that we've talked about, where as long as they can come on that visit and short of, a monsoon hitting and half the coaching staff leaving for the NFL mid-visit, these guys are going to commit. And this was a guy that Washington wanted. And so it's great that now they got him in the boat early on in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is somebody who, he's a little positionless, if you want to call it that, where he's going to play wide receiver, where that certainly, as you said, with Kevin Cummings and Scotty Graham being his recruiters, that he's an offensive guy that they like over there. But he's somebody where if you read his scouting profile, Greg Biggins talks about him as a safety. There's some others that might believe that he could bulk up a little bit more and play linebacker, which, especially at the wide receiver position, is going to be really, really interesting, where he's got long arms. I like his frame. I like his tape. And he's somebody that I believe can, just go up and attack the ball and do a lot of nice things. And this is now shaping up to be a really interesting wide receiver class, where when I look at just the guys they have committed, Raiden Vinesbright, who's going to be a really nice speed threat on the outside. Yeah, Dezmen Roebuck, who's somebody who can fit in the slot. This guy in Ajose can be a pretty typical X receiver, where he's a big throw the ball up and he's going to come down with it kind of guy. Thanks to that physicality and just thanks to the way he likes to play. But it still just doesn't feel like they're done at the class.
Oh, no doubt. And I think that's kind of where I'm at, where you can talk about having some high-end talent. But one thing that we've talked about this a number of times on the show, Jedd Fisch, for whatever reason, and we used to see it under Steve Sarkisian back in his days at Washington and a number of other coaches, these three stars that are under-recruited, and Bishop O'Dowd, we said, is a very good high school. Maybe they weren't necessarily what they used to be back in the late 2010s, 2010s, and that sort of thing. But it's a very good high school in a very good area. And anytime you can keep a West Coast kid on the West Coast, and you look at what this class is kind of building out to be, where they're taking very specific types of players from across the country. So the fact that they identified his skill set, and that's exactly what you hit on. Yeah, he's going to play receiver, but I think those guys, this staff really likes guys that can go either both ways or play two sports. If you're a basketball player and a football player, track, football, whatever, wrestling and football, it's really those type of guys that for whatever, and I think actually, talk about, mentioned Greg Biggins before the show. Greg Biggins mentioned when you look at evaluating talent, a lot of NFL teams are drafting guys that played multiple positions in multiple sports. So you look at a guy like this where, okay, he's a 3-star. Yeah, but he comes from a very good high school and a very good state. So this is different than taking a, 3 or 4-star from X state where, okay, he may be a big fish in a small pond. He's a relatively decent sized fish in a massive pond. And I think there's this, the sky's the limit in terms of he hasn't even come close to peaking his production and peaking who he can be as a receiver. And knowing, as we're going to talk about, what else is left in the class, it's a perfect fit because he doesn't prevent you from taking somebody else down the road. And when you look at the depth in the room, especially, you kind of have to load up in this one of these two classes at some point.
Right. Lars, we got more right after the break. Right after a message from our good friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. So, Lars, I like that you're touching on the multi-position background there with Deji, because that is something that I'm really, really curious about. And when you look at him, it's somebody who it's very clear that he understands how to play the game from wherever he's lined up. And I feel like that's been another thing that the staff has been really, really good at identifying is players with a high football IQ. And with a lot of the guys in this class, you can just when you watch the film, you just see their eyes and you see a lot of things in their eyes that they're processing things at such a high level, which, doesn't always show up in terms of a recruiting ranking. Well, that's more about physical projectability and things like that. But when you look at just how guys play on the mental side of the game, in the film room, that sort of stuff, that's where I feel like that's an area that Deji can really shine at the college level. And that's something I'm really excited to see from him.
Same. I think that's exactly why you go and target specific body types versus rankings or area or whatever they want to call it. You go where the talent goes and you go where the talent is. And if it happens to be on the West Coast, so be it, because as we're going to talk about, when you look at the other receivers that they have in this class, you mentioned Raiden Vinesbright, now in Florida, was in Arizona. You look at Dezmen Roebuck in Arizona. You're going across the country for some of these guys, and you have Andrew Marsh in Texas, Donovan Olugbode in Florida. There's a number of these guys where they're all across the country, so they're not just saying, oh, we're going to go to Arizona and take the three best guys in Arizona. We're going to go and take the best receiver in Washington, or where you go where the talent is. And for me, it's about the evaluation. I think we've seen at Arizona, this staff, at least in year one, is worth trusting the evaluations, because when you go back and look at Arizona's first couple of classes, Jonah Coleman, all these 3-stars that ended up being very key contributors down the road, even though at the time it was like, wow, they're only getting, it's like 3-star U. It's like, yeah, but 3-star U just won 10 games for the fifth time in program history. That says something.
No, absolutely. And with that being said, let's get into some of these other guys, where the first one that we should talk about is the other one who's got a commitment date set, and that's Chris Lawson, where it's coming down to a battle of Washington and Oregon. And let's just say, as of right now, as we're recording this, let's say on July 7th, when Chris Lawson does commit, that he chooses Washington. That would be 4 receivers in this class. And that's a really nice class when you look at it. You've got a whole bunch of guys who can do different things. They're all unique receivers in their own right. But when you put them all together, you've got a really nice class. But it seems interesting that Washington still wouldn't be done. And Lars, we're going to get to more with that right after one more break. Because we're going to send a message to our good friends over at Game Time, because Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, which was wonderful for me during my time in Boston. It was about 40 minutes before first pitch on Tuesday. Even though the Red Sox lost that game, I looked down and I said, let's check the prices on the old Game Time app there. Got some seats 5 rows up from the field, Fenway Park, for a fantastic price, and it's all thanks to the Game Time app. And you can do that too, because Game Time has last minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. They've got zone deals. You can save even more when you choose a section like Game Time choose the seats. They got the lowest price guarantee, where if you find a lower price somewhere else, Game Time will credit you with 110% of the difference, and you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Yeah, so this is kind of where Washington is at, right? Where you think about there's 4 receivers in this class, and you look at who's leaving. Jeremiah Hunter, Giles Jackson, and then potentially Denzel Boston, right? Because he could theoretically, with a massive year, as we talked about this off the show, he could potentially decide to go to the NFL draft after this coming season.
Sure.
Even after that, you're now looking at that room and thinking, okay, well, who's there? There's not necessarily a ton of bodies with a ton of experience, right? You look at Kevin Green coming in from Arizona, doesn't have a ton of production, so he might be a guy that factors into the rotation. But I think that's why Kevin Cummings is going so hard on this class, and with top end talent, where you talk about Andrew Marsh, you talk about Donovan Olugbode, you talk about Chris Lawson, plus Raiden Vinesbrad and the guys they already have committed. Why not load up at the position? Because you already made it clear you're willing to play freshmen, and if you don't have a ton of guys in the room, you can still have Audric Harris and those guys being in the two deeps. But it really creates a perfect competition and the potential for Washington to run back that trio that they had last year, which again was hard to ever be replicated. But that's how you do it: is you get all 3 of those guys in the same class, and you have a Chris Lawson, a Donovan Olugbode, and a Raiden Vinesbrad who all pop at the same time. That's what you need to do. And it does, as crazy as it sounds, I could actually see that working out because of the limited number of experienced bodies. And your other option is going to the portal, where we saw Washington do that with Hunter, but they didn't get Zachary Franklin. They did get Kevin Green as a depth piece, but there's nobody that is going to be on the 25 roster where you say, these are your 3 starting receivers, even with Denzel Boston. Denzel might be one of them, but there's still 2, 3, 4 more spots open there that any of these guys come in and compete for playing time.
So you're absolutely right. And that's one of the very interesting things when it comes to, I read about it a little bit over on Huskies Wire, and I know you did as well on Athlon, is with Donovan Olugbode, where he got a prediction from Adam Gorney to end up picking Washington. Sounds like he's set to commit towards the end of July. And that's a name that I'm really, really curious about, where there's certainly some work going on behind the scenes there with his teammate and Raiden Vinesbrad, where I'm sure he's trying to get him to commit to Washington, join him at the college level, all that sort of stuff. But it's really curious where, it doesn't seem like Washington's out of the race yet for Andrew Marsh either, where I know some people are saying it might be that Michigan is certainly the leader, but it sounds like Washington and Texas are still in the mix for him. And it's something where all of a sudden, that looks like a really full wide receivers class, and there could be some processing or some other things that go on a little bit later in the cycle to kind of cut down a little bit, where I don't think that Deji, as the theme of the show here, is the guy who ends up being processed. But there are some ways where, maybe somebody hits the portal. As you said, maybe they're guys that leave for the NFL draft early. If Denzel Boston has a huge year, who's to say that he doesn't? Where these are all things that, we're speculating a long ways off there. But there are so many different ways to make it work that you want to just collect as much talent as possible, whether it be with Olugbode, Deji, Chris Lawson, Raiden Vinesbrad, Dezmen Roebuck, whoever it is. You want to make sure that you can try to get as many of those guys as you possibly can in the boat. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a stellar class where, you're going to have to find a way to play some freshmen. You might have to see some guys at the transfer portal, whatever it might be, but it's all about building for the future. And Washington's wide receiver room is certainly, it's getting better. Where, as you said, it's impossible to replicate what you had last season. But with Justice Williams, with Rashid Williams, with Keith Reynolds, there's still a lot of talent in the room that's there, that's ready. Jeremiah Hunter and Denzel Boston obviously being the key names right there. But there are a lot of guys that are ready to contribute, but you don't want to stop there. You want to continue to add to it. And Lars, that being said, that's probably a good place for us to get out of here on a Saturday so everybody else can go enjoy their day. Thank you to all the viewers tuning in. Thank you, Lars, as always, for being here. And to make sure you're up to date whenever we drop special bonus videos like this on the weekend, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating the channel 3 times a week, plus all this different fun bonus content. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. You click that little bell so you're notified every time we post a new video. Like the video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them right down below. below in the comment section. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Monday.